Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a two-lane trip of memory into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
Hey, good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? It's a beautiful, wet morning here in Kingman, Arizona. About time we got some rain, settled the dust a tad bit. Our guest this morning is going to be Dal Smilie, Tin Can Tourist Ambassador at Large and a co-host of the upcoming Tin Can Tourist Route 66 Centennial Caravan. Got a lot of great things coming up. We're going to talk about a little bit later in the program. We're finalized arrangements with Dynamic Living Radio, so you'll be able to listen to Coffee with Jim real soon on that platform. What we're going to do right now is give Dal a call. He is out in Barstow, if I recall, so he's up bright and early this morning. But got a lot to talk about. I've got the information here on the Centennial Caravan that's coming up. And I think you're going to be really interested in this. Tin Can Tourist is a really fascinating organization.
Morning.
Good morning, Dal. How are you today, sir?
Darn good.
Gosh darn it, I'm glad. I appreciate you getting up this early and chewing the fat with us a bit this morning.
I always wake up early.
I'm an old farm boy myself. I'm up 4:30, 5 o'clock most mornings.
Amen. Farm boy too. You got it.
So you're out in Barstow this morning?
I am. I'm on my way back to Montana from big vintage trailer rally in Pismo Beach, California. And so here I am in Barstow, right on Route 66.
Oh boy, I tell you, I really have looked forward to this conversation. You and I have been corresponding by email, and I've always had an interest in the Tin Can Tourist, the old vagabonds with Henry Ford and Firestone, Thomas Edison, those fellas, and Mr. Byram, the fellow who created Airstream trailers, has always been kind of an interest in me. And then you started talking about Studebaker trucks, and you really had my full attention. And then you added Route 66 into the mix. And, well, from there, it just went downhill.
It's all good stuff.
Yes, sir. This is going to be quite an event this next year. Are you doing some scouting on that Route 66 caravan for next year?
Yeah, we, and let me back up a little bit. With the Centennial, there's just everybody, I believe, every motorcyclist and car club guy, and everyone's going to be out celebrating. And I was talking to my Terry Bone, that's the head of the Tin Can Tours. I said, we vintage trailer people just have to do something with that, And he said, what would you do? I said, I'd have a caravan from both sides, both ends, and meet in the middle or thereabouts. Amarillo is the closest that you could realistically do something in. And so we started scouting sites and trying to figure out how you could come, 225 to 250 miles a day with your trailer, not kill yourself, and come along from both ends, then meet at Adrian, and then we're going to parade into Amarillo with a police escort, and it's just going to be, it'll be a little different than some of the other people doing stuff, and it's blossomed on us. We got, like 70 trailers right now. We'll probably end up with 80 or 90 before we're done, and quite a fandango.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a party. It's always a circus sideshow on Route 66 anyway. And
Amen.
It's not our most historic or scenic highway, but because it's had such press and publicity for 100 years, it's become kind of a living museum, a time capsule with an overlay of Disneyland, and it's attracts a lot of things.
I think so. We Tin Can Tours did a caravan with the old National Road and then the Lincoln Highway's 100th anniversary But, they're a little bit further back in history and out of our, the popular memory of people around now. And Route 66 is just, this is timely. It's, a lot of us remember the TV show, and, everybody knows Route 66. If you think of American iconic stuff, the Coke bottle, Airstream trailer, Harley Davidson, Mount Rushmore, boy, Route 66 is right there. It just tells you America,
I had the privilege a few years ago to speak at the second European Route 66 Festival in Zlin, Czechia. And there was 20,000 plus people from 10 countries celebrating Route 66, American cars, American music. And I had a fella say something to me that just has really stuck with me. He said, growing up behind the Iron Curtain, listening to Radio Free America and the song Route 66, and then seeing bootleg copies of Easy Rider, he said that road came to symbolize for his generation the freedom that the Statue of Liberty symbolized for a previous generation.
Boy, that just says it, doesn't it?
It hits it right on the head. Yeah. Have you got your plans pretty well set?
We do. We've got like 70 trailers signed up right now. And think about it. This is early November.
Yeah.
This is early. But my thought was, if you're going to get campgrounds with places in them, I think that my thought is, with so much activity on 66 next year, that every motel and campground, everything is going to be taken, and we're wanting to grab chunks, and have campgrounds set them aside for us. So we need to get going, and we weren't sure if we'd have 25 trailers interested. It's a big time commitment. And boy, it's boogieing. It's people are excited about it, so that's great.
I got a campground for you. You may already have got this one on your radar, but Vicky Ashcraft out top of 9 Mile Hill on Route 66, just a few miles west of Albuquerque, Enchanted Trails Trading Post and RV Park.
I think I know about that one. Now, we've got the ones we're doing set and Adam's set for a month and a half or so, where people are calling up and making reservations. So we're set in concrete pretty well what we're doing, unless we have such a big overflow that they need to shift off to some other spots, which is possible,
Vicky is the president of the New Mexico Route 66 Association in New Mexico, but she is passionate about two things: travel trailers and Hudsons. And
I like both of those.
She's got a 1940. It's an original 1946 trading post, which also now serves as the laundromat and a few others. She has the modern RV park. And then she has a great display of vintage travel trailers, all outfitted with period correct interior, all hooked up to some nice Hudson automobiles sitting out there.
All right. We're stopping by on the way for sure.
I'll
see that.
I'll make sure you have her information. She's right at the top of the hill, just before you start down into Albuquerque on 66. And boy, I tell you, she's got quite a place there. We can also throw a party for you here in Kingman, I'm sure, as you come through.
Well, we're going to be coming right through there for sure, And then we're going to get our last night on the road. We're going to start June 7th, a Sunday. Well, actually, we're going to start by parking over here in Barstow at the Route 66 Mother Road Museum. It's in it's a great old building, Harvey House.
Yeah.
It's got a train museum too. And I was just visiting that yesterday and talking to them and figuring out what we're going to do, and have a local long time restaurant's going to cater some really authentic, really good Mexican food to us. And so we're going to be parked all along there. But we're going to get over to Adrian then. And we've been talking to her, and she's kind of excited. And put 70, 80 trailers there. And, that's a lot of trailers, takes up a lot of real estate. Point them all towards Albuquerque, and then Amarillo. And at 1:15 in the afternoon, we're taking off slowly and going to have a police escort through town. So we're planning to eat a lot of her big ugly pie and hamburgers and kick some tires right out there at Adrian.
And Brenda's great out there at the Midpoint Cafe.
Absolutely.
Really great people out there. We talk about this being a sideshow. I grew up on the road, and you got to be about 70 to have a real association with Route 66 when it was the highway. And
Right.
I have trouble comprehending the popularity because my folks used to tease me at the most inopportune times that I was potty trained on this road. And it's a highway, for God's sakes. And officially, it's a highway that doesn't exist. And yet, the popularity of this road is just astounding.
I think it's growing, don't you?
I think it's more popular than any time in its history. I really do.
I think so. I actually lived on an earlier, Route 66 at different times. Different routings went here and there. And in Illinois, a job I was working on a surface destruction in a coal mine, and we lived on a section of Route 66. So, I didn't think a thing of it at the time.
No, not at all. I have seen some of the most amazing. Next year is going to be interesting because I've already seen some of the most unusual and bizarre things. I had a group come through a couple years ago. Anyone was welcome to join them. The only qualification is you had to have a motorcycle manufactured before 1916.
Oh, yeah.
And my favorite story that I tell often is I had a gentleman from France contact me looking for Route 66 information. And what he didn't tell me was he was going to try to do a set a world record, walking with 6-foot stilts from Navy Pier in Chicago to Santa Monica Pier. And
that makes my knees hurt just thinking about it.
He made it. I have a dark sense of humor, but he made it as far as Oklahoma, and apparently he had a heat stroke. And the first thing that came into my mind was, how does a French mime call for help in Oklahoma? I forgot to mention the fellow was, by the way, he was a French mime of all things. So, yeah.
Well, that's just hilarious.
Yeah. This is really, really exciting that you're putting this together. The Tin Can Tourist, of course, a lot of people in the RV crowd and whatnot, they know about it, but this has got to be one of the oldest organizations of its kind.
Oh, yeah. The Tin Can Tours were formed in 1919. And just think about those times. It was its biggest population, and certainly that time the people belonged were in like Michigan, Indiana, back in that way. And right then is when the Model T was getting going good, and people, the regular people could go to Florida rather than just rich guys on trains. And so, the Dixie Highway, the various versions of it came along and all that. People, they made all kinds of aftermarket camping stuff to use on your Model T or similar. And then people would start with very basic little trailers too. And they would go down and spend a month or two in Florida with these really organized camps where they'd have a mayor and a sheriff and rules and bands and on and on and on. And so that was the Tin Can Tourists. And they went along, they were over 100,000 members there for a while. It was a big deal. And then, as time went on, it started to, like so many things, die back a bit. And then in 1998, Forrest and Jerry Bone, now he'd been president of the Vintage Airstream Club, he kind of said, look, I'd like to see all different kinds of brands and colors and sizes, and not just Airstream. God love Airstreams, but there's more stuff, And so he repopped, got this going again, and it's got to be really a nationwide and even bigger organization with largely vintage, lots of rallies around. A car show, I've been to a million car shows, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're ready to leave and go home. But at a Tin Can Tourist or a Vintage Trailer Rally, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're ready to put on the barbecue, maybe have a margarita or something. It's a thing to occupy the rest of your day. So it's really fun.
Well, you mentioned back around 1918, 1919, I watched a great program recently about the vagabonds, Henry Ford, like say Harvey Firestone, these guys that had money, so they had nice motorized homes and whatnot, and they'd go out camping.
They had their own chefs and everything,
But it's amazing that some of these guys, of course, 1918, 19, that's when, isn't that when Wally Byam started getting together and creating his trailers and selling the plans.
The story. Wally is from Baker City, Oregon, up there on the north side of Oregon. And the story goes that he was big into camping and doing stuff. And his wife said, "Wally, I'm not sleeping on the ground anymore. Tired of it, sick of it, that's that." So he got a Model T chassis or something similar and built some plywood thing on it to get her off the ground. And then he improved it. And pretty soon his neighbors are going, "Hey, that's pretty cool." And he kept improving. So he, in any real sense, he had his company going in a very basic sense by about 1931. And now, not the kind of Airstream you think of today, his stuff was masonite sided and whatever. And he sold kits or plans or finished trailers. But then in about 1936, he started with some aluminum sided ones that started to evolve more towards what you think of as an Airstream today. And really, he's the only company, I believe, still in existence post-war, because during the war, everybody that was in the defense industry had to quit building what they were building. So Airstream's still around, still following his credo, still doing great. And so for 1931 now, that's a stretch of time there. Well, you think about it, Route 66, 1926, 1931, they're the same age, really,
You mentioned, 1919 and traveling like this. I did some work a couple of years ago with the Historic Vehicle Association, and they recreated Edsel Ford's trip in 1915 on the National Old Trails Road, which became Route 66 Southwest. And in his journal, they gave me a copy of his travel journal to show you, quote, highways, how good they were in those years. He wrote July 15th, 1915. He and his buddies, they left Williams, Arizona that morning and arrived in Kingman at the Brunswick Hotel at midnight. 156 miles. They considered it a good day's run.
Yeah. Well, I've done some, of course, I live in Montana, so I was pretty interested in the Yellowstone Trail, which was the first coast-to-coast highway the year before the Lincoln Highway. So we're talking 1912, 1913 period. And, all they did was take some old farm roads and stuff and write down where you turn and what you did, and then they posted it, So there was no concrete or brick or gravel or anything, everybody back in those days traveled on the train, really. Yeah. The old story about you ask a farmer how to get somewhere and he says you can't get there from here. It was sort of true, because the roads went out and you brought your stock or grain or whatever it in and loaded on the train. Going point to point in the car very far is actually the good roads movement that started with the real bicycle craze in the 1890s. In that period, they wanted to get out and go, and they want more than these muddy, sandy, bottomless, horrible roads or what passes roads,
It's amazing, the bicycle movement, how fast it took off. I just was reading an article about the bicycles, late 1880s, 1890s, everywhere. I was amazed by how many bicycle touring clubs. There was a guy in Laramie, Wyoming in like 1891, 92. He organized out of Laramie, Wyoming, bicycle tours to Yellowstone. And then he organized a bicycle trip to the Columbia Exposition in Chicago on bicycles from Laramie, Wyoming.
And think about the technology of bicycles. Tire technology had gotten better. And instead of those big high wheelers, the crankshaft, the system that we think of as how you pedal today came along, and bicycles became more accessible and were quite the fad for many years there,
You mentioned the roads, and Denny Gibson's with us now this morning. He's written extensively on a lot of the early highways, including the Yellowstone. But I've got a book here called Motoring in the West, 1901 to 1910. It's a fascinating book, because all it is reprints of magazine articles and stories and journals from that period. And there's a story in there from a fellow that was trying to set a record with Franklin automobiles going across Montana, Oregon, into Minnesota. And he'd stop and ask for directions, and people would send him 40, 50 miles out of his way because they wanted their cousin to see an automobile. They would give him oddball directions and send him in just strange directions.
Now that's funny. Now think about how you would buy fuel in that time. You'd have to go to the general store, the whole infrastructure. We talk now about how the electric infrastructure is not set up as well as it might be. But at that time, when you're transitioning from one motive power to another, gasoline was you'd buy it in cans in a general store.
You've got yourself quite a rig. That's pretty interesting. Your trailer and your truck is.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we've got a. Our trailer is a Curtis Wright, it's called. Now, it's not Curtis Wright Aircraft. It's a guy called Curtis Wright that Wally Byam from Airstream got into business with after the war when he got started again. And then they broke up over money, imagine that. But Curtis Wright, they built the little sort of canned ham we got. But they also built, that Wally probably had a real hand in, one called the Clipper. There was a more aerodynamic aluminum trailer that looked very much like what Airstream was going to look like. It was like an evolutionary step on the way. And then to pull it, I like old stuff. You like old stuff. I wanted to have a vintage rig to pull it. And after high school, I'd had a 1948 Studebaker pickup. You get a Chevy or Ford or something, and they're wonderful and they're pretty and I like them, but everybody has one, So the Studebaker was a nostalgic thing for me. And we wanted it to look very stock, but be able to get down the road. So I've got, disc brakes and a small block Chevy engine, but otherwise a very stock look, and off down the road you go, and you can't get away from a gas station. You can hardly get into a campsite. Everybody wants to come over and talk to you, which is kind of fun,
I've got a soft spot for Studebaker trucks. I'll share with you when we get together. I was one of the short version. My pa was. I tell stories about growing up, and people think I was born in the 30s. My pa did stuff pretty backwards, but we had a 49 or 50 Studebaker 3/4 ton stake bed that we hauled hay and whatnot with. And I got stuck on a Route 66 trip through the Black Mountains of Oatman with the steep grades, and before I had a driver's license. And that was Mr. Toad's wild ride. So
I'll bet you don't. Yeah, it wanted to overheat and didn't have brakes either.
No.
Speaking of historical roads and Studebakers, the Studebaker, a couple of brothers had made their real fortune in the gold rush in 1849, and they made it not by mining, but by being blacksmiths and building wheelbarrows and shovels and picks and whatever, and went back home, back to South Bend with a chunk of money. I forget, $5,000 or $10,000 in those days, and then they made wagons. President Lincoln's Phaeton was a Studebaker, for instance. But I had read that like 70% of the wagons on the Oregon Trail were Studebakers. Now, my thought is, gosh, they were here at first. What happened to them?
Well, Studebaker, by the 1870s, late 1870s, Studebaker billed themselves as the largest manufacturer of wheeled vehicles in the world. They were building baby carriages, wagons, military ambulances, gun carriages.
Yep.
And again, another opportunity to fill your head with some useless knowledge. Apparently, Winston Churchill was captured during the Boer War, and he was in a Studebaker wagon. And the first Studebaker automobies was a project with Thomas Edison involved. They were building.
They were electric.
Yeah.
I've got a friend in Palm Springs who's got a picture of he owns. It's a 36 Studebaker 4-door convertible, and in it is Churchill, FDR, and Stalin in that car. Now that's pretty cool.
Speaking, getting back to travel trailers, I tell you, there's a great event that you might want to. I'll send you some photos and get the word out, maybe from the folks in the area. But Tulsa, they do the AAA Route 66 Road Fest every year now.
Uh-huh.
And the event is neat because it's all indoors and air conditioned, and it's a monstrous event with booths and tables from all the Route 66 associations, tourism offices. They have about a 200 car show indoors, plus they have a display of vintage motorhomes and trailers.
Right, and Tulsa, by the way, is where Spartan Aircraft then built Spartan trailers, which are wonderful trailers. They're beautiful aluminum. And I know some people in Tulsa that restore trailers, and I'm familiar with that show. That's very cool. Yeah.
Last year I was very impressed. It was shades of the long trailer with Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, but they had a really odd and interesting double-decker travel trailer from the 1950s. That was kind of a sight to behold.
Well, and some of those trailers were travel trailers. Some of them were meant to be more permanent, or back in the day, now you buy a built manufactured home, quote unquote trailer, and you sit it down and it sits there for its whole life, But back in the day, you had the trailers that you would travel with, and you also had part trailers that, you'd move maybe job to job, and they'd be one place for a year or two or three and move on to another. My grandfather worked in the defense industry in World War II, and he worked on, so he was a big dog in some of the construction, the Manhattan Project stuff, and they would live in trailers, but a year or two here, a year or two there, and that's all there was for the workers.
I some years ago I wrote an article for Special Interest Autos by Hemmings. Unfortunately, the vehicles disappeared now, but I discovered out in a little ghost town of Chloride, Arizona, the post-war construction boom, and just what you're talking about, having a home that you could pick up and move, go to someplace different and things. A really interesting fellow named Royal Rounds, and he had hoped to sell these, and he only built the one, but it was a motorized home specifically for that purpose. Work on a construction site for 6 months, a year, and then move on. And he built this with all aircraft military surplus. It was built with aluminum framing, aluminum skin, plexiglass windows. But it was highly advanced. He had radiant heating in the floors. He had air conditioning. It was front-wheel drive with power steering, cork insulation. But for some ungodly reason, he took even the wastewater, the water tanks and fuel were the rubber fuel cells out of aircraft that he'd put in this thing. And for some reason, this thing was a 40-foot motorized home. For some reason, he went to all this work, engineered this incredible vehicle, and he used a 110 horse flathead Mercury motor in it. And on his first run he built this in Long Beach, California, and he ran up to Fargo, North Dakota, and he burned up a motor, brand new motor, before he even got there.
I'll bet. Although of course that's a big rig he built there and complex. But when you look at the pictures and stuff of trailers back in the day, they weren't pulling them with great big pickups and great big engines. It's amazing what they're pulling. Some pretty big trailers, with drum brakes and the trailer we got. I've got a picture of it, and they're pulling it with their 49. The original owner with their 49 Ford flathead, and when they go up the hills, out here, one of the kids would be pumping like man on a bicycle pump they had hooked to water to spray on the radiator to keep it from boiling over going up the hill. And you can imagine around Oatman or something, you'd need that, for sure,
Yeah, well, that gets into that great movie, the long trailer with Desi Arnaz, and they were pulling that with what I think it was about a 53 Mercury. They were dragging that monster trailer around.
And if you watch that movie, the car morphs into a Lincoln that they painted it the same way and looks very similar, because even for the movie, it didn't have enough. So they had to upgrade in the middle of the movie. Well, you got to kind of keep an eye out for magical change in there, you know.
I did not notice that, but it's been so many years since I've seen that movie. I'll have to go back and look for that on purpose. This
That trailer was a new moon. It's a neat trailer.
I am really looking forward to this caravan a lot. And if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. I'm pretty good at telling people where to go, and there's some neat things like I mentioned, like say with the Enchanted Trails. Vicky would roll out the red carpet for you guys, and she just eats and drinks and sleeps this stuff. And she's got some pretty interesting trailers.
Oh yeah, I've seen her thing online, and that was one of the places I want to stop by and see. And I'm glad you refreshed me on that. But you know, one thing we'll have to keep talking to each other where you're going to be along that time, because we're gonna have the Brendan that runs the museum here is he's just gonna get back a couple days before from what's that convoy thing where they're taking vintage cars to Chicago going back. He's driving an Edsel convertible, and they're taking a whole bunch of them, and so he's going to give us a little talk on his adventures with that, because you can bet he'll have some. Edsel convertible, no matter what shape it's in, there'll be some adventures.
Oh God, yes.
And then we're going to have, of course, in Amarillo, we're going to have the from the festival / chamber, we're going to have a presenter, and then we're going to also get together out at Jack Sizemore's RV museum there, and we're going to have a presentation on Route 66 and the rebirth of it in this modern thing, and all that, because it's all just so interesting. You can't hear it 10 times, it's still interesting.
We've had an Airstream owners convoy just come through Kingman recently, a couple weeks ago. And the owners, Tim and Lenore here, that have this new place that opened, Tin Can Alley on 66, they hosted, they arranged to have them park on Route 66, made arrangements, I guess, with the city to have that done. And Tin Can Alley is kind of a neat idea on Route 66. These folks took almost an entire block of condemned buildings. They restored the 1939 service station and put together the original Pegasus on the front. They come up with some interesting gas pumps. They have a real odd 1919 gas pump. But the Tin Can Alley, they tore down some buildings that were beyond hope. They found some pretty rough Airstreams, restored the exteriors to original, and gutted the interiors and converted them to nice Airbnb, fully modern rentals, and created a 1950s style campground right on Route 66. Kind of a neat idea.
That's kind of neat. And there's some others of that kind of thing, and even with other brands around the country, it's kind of neat and very nostalgic and has a nice feel about it. There's one in Bisbee, Arizona.
That one's famous.
One up in Washington. Yeah, and there's several around, and I've seen the one you're talking about online, and that looks like a terribly interesting place.
Yeah.
And of course the Airstreams are kind of, like I said, just sort of timeless, iconic American thing, like Route 66.
Well, you mentioned, and there was such diversity of the trailers. Of course, during the Depression, a lot of companies were diversifying, trying to stay afloat, like Pierce Arrow.
Yes.
The luxury car maker, manufactured trailers. And then after the war, we had the Prosperity, the Vacations, the Road Trips, the Construction. And for a while, it seemed like everybody and their brother was trying to build a trailer or motorhome.
Oh, that's exactly true. And I think if you think about World War II, before that time, so many people they didn't get 7 miles from town. They never got off the farm. They never got anywhere. They didn't need to get anywhere. Then comes World War II. And all of a sudden, instead of being 7 or 10 miles down the road, you're in France. That's a big deal. You're eating funny food and drinking wine, and you're thinking, wow, it's bigger than my little place. And people came back, and, modern America started. We got electricity, we got televisions, we got hard roads, we got better cars, and travel trailers became a big thing, among other things. And there was just hundreds of different builders. Some people made a very, very few. There were several factories that made a bunch, like Tulsa you were talking there, Spartan, made a whole bunch. And they made such quality. I go out and look around, I think everyone they ever built still out there. There's such quality, but Americans got out and got off the farm and started suburbia. The America we know now started right after World War II, really, and travel trailers are a big part of that.
Denny Gibson that I mentioned earlier, folks, he's got some great books, by the way. He just posted here that he had to brag a tad bit. He says, I've got to brag a little bit about my grandparents, great-grandparents. They joined the Tin Can Tourist in 1920.
Oh, that is wonderful.
In meeting Forrest Blown and others during the National Road Caravan in 2006.
Okay. Yep. And see, a Tin Can Tourist did the National Road, which my great-grandfather was one of the congressmen that helped get that passed because it went through his town, of course, Nothing like self-serving, right?
Yes.
And but then that's great. That's a great bit of history.
I ran across something at a local car show a while back, and I did some digging on. Are you familiar with the Corvair Ultra Vans?
Oh, yeah. And talk about a little motor and a chunk of, relatively big chunk of fiberglass. You're not going to go a million mile an hour in one of those, but they're pretty neat, And I've seen, there's people, of course, there's a club for everything, But I've seen a bunch of those together at a time, and they look like a bunch of jelly beans,
It's really an interesting vehicle. The one here in Kingman, you got to laugh. They did a 1950 style paint job on the front of it. But I was really shocked that those actually weigh 150 pounds less than a Volkswagen camper.
Is that right? Is that right?
It was all monocoque construction, like an airplane fuselage.
Well, it would have a little bigger motor than the typical Volkswagen of the same era, too.
Yeah. And the fellow who designed those, he didn't make a lot of those. He was trying to work a deal with Coleman, I guess it was, to build those. But they were Corvair powered, rear-wheel drive, of course. And then he made a handful, and I don't know how many, but he made a handful with Olds Toronado drivetrains, V8 engines.
I don't know those. I don't think.
He turned the whole mechanism around, so it was rear wheel drive, but with transaxles. But it was Oldsmobile and V8 engines.
If you think about the whole trailer and RV industry as it's evolved along, there's so much innovation. And think about it, a trailer, it's like going through an earthquake the whole time it's going. It's rocking and rolling and doing stuff. So it has to be pretty tough to stay together and do its thing. So it's, we did an event here a few years ago at the RV Hall of Fame Museum in Elkhart, Indiana, where the Lincoln Highway and the Yellowstone Trail and the Dixie Highway all go right by it, pretty close by it. By the way, some of my favorite old highways. But Forrest and Jerry Bone got in the Hall of Fame there, and they have a wonderful museum with, like 65 vintage trailers and RVs in there. Well worth somebody stopping by if they're in that part of the world,
There's so many of these little hideaway things, but the neat thing about the Tin Can Tourist, automobiles and vintage things, trailers, cars, they make terrible coffee tables. And
you got to use them.
They're meant to be used, and that's how you get a new generation interested.
Exactly. Well, we one of the popular things that all these trailer rallies have is, I told you can't get out of a gas station or into a campground without somebody wanting to come over and talk to you, or a million people want to talk to you. But these rallies, and I was just this weekend at a big one over in Pismo Beach, California, but we'll have an open house. Now, this one we're doing in Amarillo, and they have like a 10-day Route 66 festival, and particularly big this year, of course, coming up. But we're going to have an open house on Friday out at the Big Texan RV Ranch. So people that don't have a vintage one or don't have one at all come out, and they're just, everybody's got their old stuff out, and people just love it, and they're sort of proselytizing what a fun thing it is, to do. And another nice thing about the Tin Can Tourist and the vintage trailer movement, at a campground today, you're sitting there in your 40-foot motorhome watching your 60-inch flat screen TV, and you don't see any people out. At our events, everybody's out talking to each other. It's very social. It's very, it's a whole different thing. It's kind of fun. It's fun is what it is. So anybody that happens to be in Amarillo next year for that Route 66 Centennial Festival, come on by the open house. We'd love to see you.
Well, it's going to be, this is the thing too. You mentioned the modern motorhomes. This is why Model A Fords, Model Ts, Tin Can Tourist, and Route 66 is so popular. We live in a very cold, impersonal, generic world. We have 500 friends on Facebook that we've never met, and
right.
it's cold. This is real. It's tangible. It's people. You're interacting with people. You're laughing. You're having experiences. You're broke down on the highway. And you're meeting people. It's fun.
Yep. Yep. And everybody, I'll have people say, "Hey, the open house isn't on right now, but I'd like to come out and look." Well, very often it's like, hey, these people, just like some motorcycle people and old car and custom car and classic car people, want to talk about their rigs. They like what they've done. So many of these too, they didn't just write a check and have them delivered to their door, although there's plenty of restorers out there personalizing and restoring this stuff. But a lot of these people had a lot to do with restoring their own or fixing it up or personalizing it. And they want to talk about that, and they know some stuff. And so that's seemingly a good deal different than, some of the modern RVs where, where I was just at in Pismo, there's all these big trailers and I bet 70% of them, the people come up in their Porsche and camp, and then they leave, and the trailer park stores them across the road, and they call up ahead of time and say, "I'm going to be there next Thursday. Put this brand of brie, cheese, and wine in it, and I'll be there." And they never pull their trailer an inch. It's pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, it's still. I'm sure they still enjoy themselves and has fun, but it's just
they do.
I just
think we have more fun. I think Tin Can Tourists, we have more fun.
It's just a little too sterile, that kind of thing. I'll tell you something I encountered recently too. Of course, in the old teardrop trailers were real popular for a while, and
they still are.
And I understand that there's some people reproducing those,
yes.
kind of modernized a bit with microwave ovens, things of that nature.
Well, both in the travel trailers and teardrops, a lot of people have modernized somewhat, upgraded or even added bathrooms, microwaves, and those kind of things. Now, the teardrops, there was a lot back in the day, and a lot of them were kits and plans you found in Popular Mechanics, but they got really popular around the street rod crowd, for instance, because you can pull them. They're neat. The fenders may sort of kind of match your car, and there's a whole organizations out there of, they're not only vintage trailers, but they're also the whole teardrop world. I know one organization, their newsletter is called the Tow Line, I think it is. And there's all kinds of newer ones out there, like you said, because as we get smaller and smaller cars because of the fuel costs, you can pull a teardrop, but you pull a 30-foot trailer. You better have a rig to pull it these days, and a little economy car won't pull it. And the other thing is a teardrop you can park in a smaller place, like maybe your garage or next to it, that your homeowner's agreement won't kill you about. Who knows?
It's just so this is really, really exciting stuff, and I look forward to this very much. I encourage people to get out. And Denny just mentioned that he was in Avon Park, Florida, a couple years ago, and they had a Tin Can Tourist exhibit at the local museum. They had a big convention there in 1939 and 1940.
Right, and down there is where the Tin Can Tourists were really organized and put together and first stuff, and the cities would welcome them because here's all these people that would come. Now, some of them were pretty frugal and weren't really bucks up, but they weren't. They were, like I said, they had their own governance, their own sheriff or marshal, and their own, own events, and would just have hundreds or more people for months at a time, all set up. So those towns are ready to see them.
I want to thank you for taking time this morning to join us and talk about this, get us excited about this. I have the information here about the convention and the website for Tin Can Tourist. When I publish this later today, I will include this information as well, and I'll be doing a blog post about the Vagabonds, Tin Can Tourist, and the upcoming Route 66 Caravan. I'll do a blog post on the Jim Hinckley's America website this week, and I'll also make sure this information is included on all
Jim,
of those.
I'm going to look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And I'm glad you're an early riser. The last 3 weeks, I've ended up with California programs. Another one I wanted to mention to you. Speaking of that, a couple of weeks ago, I had Lisa Mizajet from Goffs.
Right. Just down the road.
Yeah, and they've got, she's affiliated with Harvest Host and some others. It has a very nice campground with showers and everything. And they are in the middle of nowhere, and they take pride in that. That's their T-shirt say, "Yes, we are in the middle of nowhere."
No, I think Amboy is nowhere. Goffs is on its way to Needles, so it's starting to be somewhere.
Yeah, that's good. Goffs has I said this earlier. My pa said it was better to fill the head with useless knowledge than no knowledge at all. To the best of my knowledge, Goffs is the first community that was marooned when Route 66 was realigned. 29 or 30, Route 66 was realigned from Goffs over to Essex, going up through that South Pass area. So they kind of got the short shift there.
Yeah. With so many people, not only Route 66 certainly, and then the interstate system certainly marooned a lot of businesses and motels and towns and neon, and it's sort of love that neon, and so much of that's been preserved along 66 and is getting re-preserved now, as people get excited about it. I like that.
Or recreated. We were fortunate. They had to close a couple of years ago, but we had a father's son that had a sign company move here from California to Kingman, and they did billboards, digital signs, but their hobby was neon. And they created some signs for businesses here in Kingman that you would think were 70 years old. And they restored some great signs. One of them that we pulled out of a garage here was an old Packard sales and service sign from 1930 that had been put away in World War II. And we put it back up on the garage, which happens to be on Route 66.
I'm going to come through your town next early June, and I'm going to honk when I go by your place,
Well, we'll do better than that. You give a holler, and I'll let you buy me a cup of coffee, and I'll buy breakfast.
I'll do that. I will do that,
Hey, travel safe home up. It's starting to get a little wet this direction. I guess they had some snow up the mountain towards Flagstaff and Ash Fork, so getting to be that time of year.
We had down here in Barstow, there was so many places flooded and roads closed, and I saw snow plows out cleaning debris off while there's water flows going over the road. And I thought, it's time to build an ark. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, we had a pretty good rain last night, but it's been so dry here in Western Arizona. The last 8 to 10 years, but this year, I thought we were going to hunt jerky instead of deer. It's
I'll be coming down to third week of February to the Modernism show in Palm Springs, where they have a vintage trailer show there, about 55, 60 trailers. And when you come down through this country, if it's been a wet spring and winter, you really get the bloom that you don't always get every year off those flowers. And some of that is just dazzling.
Yeah. We had that a couple of years ago up here in the Black Mountains. We had a good wet spring, and it just transformed the mountains.
And it's just amazing, That dry old desert can just bloom,
Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. I have enjoyed this conversation immensely, and I'm sure we're going to have some others real soon.
All right. I'm good talking to you.
You take care, sir. Bye-bye. All
right. Bye-bye.
My friends, I think that was a great visit with Dal and some things to get excited about. I got a few things I want to share with you real quick. I mentioned the Enchanted Trails Trading Post and RV Park in Albuquerque. For those of you who know Vicky, she has spent years dedicating herself to the Route 66 community and making sure travelers have a great experience. And well, she took quite a tumble recently. So she doesn't know I did this, but I bet it would do her a lot of good if people would reach out, send her a note, send her a postcard down there, care of the Enchanted Trails Trading Post and RV Park outside of Albuquerque. I can get you the information, or you can pull it up online. And Connie Eccles, the Wagon Wheel Motel in Cuba, Missouri. She's also had a bit of a problem. And as you know, she saved that relic and turned it into a destination. That's the oldest continuously operated motel on Route 66. Perhaps you could drop her a note as well and let her know that we're thinking about her, and we sure appreciate everything that she has done there in Cuba and for the Route 66 community. Next week, speaking of motels and things of that nature, next week on Coffee with Jim, where it's going to be a wide-ranging conversation about quirky lodging, the planning of retro road trips in mid-century style, architecture, neon signs, preservation, landscaping. We're going to visit with Mary Frances O'Day. She's got a great website and project. I'm looking forward. I look forward to all the conversations we have, but this is going to be a lot of fun next week. Got a couple other things I wanted to shout out. Roadrunner Lodge in Tucumcari, New Mexico, one of our great sponsors. And I got to put a bug out here, guys. If you're intimidated about planning a Route 66 trip or a good road trip adventure, I'm real careful, what kind of wagon I hitch up to, and my name is kind of important. But I got a couple tour companies that I work with that I can highly recommend. Gilligan's Route 66 Tours. He does a first-rate caravan tour on Route 66, and he does a great caravan tour from Minneapolis to New Orleans down the Mississippi River. But he has put together and worked on and created an incredible self-drive tour that's blending technology with his years of experience and contacts on the Route 66 community. And it's the closest thing you're going to have to having a fully planned trip as far as lodging and restaurants. And then you just take your own time. And but what he's got set up with tech is like having a tour guide in the car with you. And Austin Coop, Two-Lane America. God, this guy, he's got an attention to detail that's astounding. Does trips into the Yellowstone, Route 66. He's got a great tour through the automotive museums there in the Midwest, New England fall colors. And my other that I highly recommend is Route Trip USA, Chantel and Steven. They specialize in road trips in the United States and Canada, including Route 66. But they've also got a rail tour through Canada that's really top notch. And all of these companies, there's a bonus if you book your tours with them. You get to meet with me. They all stop here in Kingman and let me do a train seal act, share a bit of the story of Route 66 and Kingman and whatnot, answer questions, deface a few books for you. All good reasons to see those folks. We've got a lot of good things coming. Steve Klim's going to join us in a few weeks. He's got a new book out about Route 66 in Tulsa. We're going to have that for you. And we got a couple new projects. I'm not quite ready to. I want to make sure they're going to work first before I get anybody excited. But we'll keep you posted on that. Meanwhile, check out Jim Hinckley's America website, jimhinckleysamerica.com. We're going to be doing some updates on that real soon. Got another event besides the Tulsa Route 66 Road Fest next June that I really want to plug. February 14th is a great time to be in Needles, California. The weather is perfect at that time of year. And they're doing the Route 66 Info Fair, be car show, music, everything, on the plaza and in the old historic El Garces. I'm working with the mayor there, Janet Jernigan. She was on our show recently. We are soliciting for materials, rack cards, visitors guides, anything from Route 66 communities, Route 66 businesses. There'll be a Route 66 info booth with travel planning information, and I'll be there to help. I'll be doing what I do best, telling people where to go. And I'll be signing copies of my new book, Route 66 100 Years. And I'll also be giving a program there about Route 66 and the National Old Trails Road in the Southwest and in the Mojave Desert. February 14th. And you don't have to drive. You can take Amtrak from Chicago or from Los Angeles. So that's one I recommend coming up too. Do we have any questions? Anything I can answer for you? Any thoughts, ideas, suggestions? Before we bid everyone an adios for today and we get ourselves going. We haven't been doing a lot of long form videos on the Jim Hinckley's America YouTube channel, but we're getting up a lot of shorts on the channel. And that's, like I say, we'll have an announcement soon. I've got a project for 2026 with our YouTube channel. I think you're going to have a lot of fun because, of course, everything we do is it's conceived as a shared adventure, because we are strong believers that the best adventures are those that are shared with friends. And so everything we do, we try to do it as a shared adventure. So I think you're going to like this. But check out our YouTube channel and, of course, Jim Hinckley's America. I'm writing a lot of blog posts for some companies, some fun blog posts you can find on Kingman Tours. That's kingman.tours. I'm writing some blog posts. I've got some projects working with Laughlin, Nevada Tourism, recommending day trips like to Goffs and some others. So if you're out here thinking of an adventure, that's something else you might plan on. And of course, you can always reach out to me. I try to answer everyone if I possibly can. I try to do that. Well, with that said, if you have no questions, no thoughts, did everybody enjoy this program today, by the way? Did everybody kind of find this entertaining? And I enjoy doing, and like I say, I noted at the beginning of this too, not only can you find us on Dynamic Living Radio coming soon, we have a dedicated Coffee with Jim website portal on Podbean. And we also have an embedded player on Kingman Tours, theb.news, and of course, Jim Hinckley's America. And we're also on Spotify, Apple, most major podcast platforms. Live programs are 7 o'clock Sunday morning, and then we publish this and archive them. And that way you can share them with your friends, pass them around. Let's build this audience. We've hit 20,000 downloads recently. I'm kind of proud of that. Thank you. Together, we're building quite a community of passionate road trip enthusiasts. Well, my friends, until we meet again, I will bid you adios. And, we'll send everybody off with our friends there in Nashville, Joe and Woody and the boys of the Road Crew. Roadcrew66.com. If you need a theme song for your road trip or inspiration for a road trip, you might start there. They got some great road trip tunes. Oh, one more item. If you are a website developer and you wanted an embedded player of Coffee with Jim, please let us know. We'll get you the code. We're going to have a section on Jim Hinckley's America real soon with all of the different, a listing of all the websites that currently have an embedded player. So it'll be kind of a free plug for you there if you're one of the folks that carry Coffee with Jim. Well, that's about enough of the gum beating for today. My friends, we'll do this again next week. Meanwhile, adios, mi amigos. Bye-bye.
Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.